Hi there, I'm Ivan the Intern. Previously on the game Overthinker, RetroThinker, a time-displaced 1980s television personality who bears an uncanny resemblance to our host, found himself teleported to a frightening alternate dimension by forces unknown. Scary stuff. We'll find out what happens to him at the conclusion of our program. Now, here's the Overthinker with a pretentious history lecture.
Our universe rests on the uneasy border between two worlds. The world of man, ordinary and stable, and the world of games, imaginative and chaotic. Where these worlds collide, one man is called to stand for reason, maintain the balance, and destroy ignorance. He is the Game Overthinker!
You know, George Santayana famously said, "Those who can't remember the past are condemned to repeat it." This is pretty much the mantra of anyone who works in the preservation of history or pretty much old things in general. I'd like to show you a few old things right now. This is the Epic of Gilgamesh. It is one of the oldest known examples of written literature in human history, likely dated to 1300 BC or over 3,300 years ago. Want to read it now? Here's how you do it. Go to a library or look it up online. Done. 3,300 years old, right at your fingertips. This is the roof of the Sistine Chapel, painted between 1508 and 1512 by Michelangelo. Now, nothing can take the place of actually seeing the real thing, but if you want to study the visuals of every inch of it, you can with a few mouse clicks. Right now. It is 6 centuries old. This is Rounday Garden Scene. Recorded in 1888, it is the earliest surviving motion picture known to exist. You are watching the whole thing, several times in fact, right now, 213 years later. This is a copy of the original Dragon Quest for the Nintendo Famicom, aka Dragon Warrior for the Nintendo Entertainment System in the West. It's arguably one of the most important video games ever made, responsible for introducing play mechanics inspired by the Ultima computer games to the Eastern gaming culture, spawning one of the most popular and long-running game franchises of all time, and for the very birth of the Japanese role-playing genre. It is only about 25 years old. If you want to legally play and/or study it in its original form, here's what you've got to do. Own a working Nintendo Entertainment System. Own a TV and connection cables that are compatible with a Nintendo Entertainment System. Own a functional Dragon Warrior game cartridge. Unless you already have most or all of those things, it is actually easier to read an Akkadian text from 1300 BC than it is to play a video game from 1986. I mean, this makes no sense. Well, actually, it makes complete sense. Unlike books, movies, and paintings, video games are only just beginning to be taken seriously as something more than just a commodity. As such, people are only just waking up to the idea that preserving classic games might be a worthwhile endeavor. Unfortunately, it may already be too late. As of today, it is generally believed that 50%, a full half of all movies made before 1950 are lost forever, victims of improper storage and a culture that didn't at first take them seriously enough to think preservation was worth it. Think about that for a minute. Half of the first half-century of the dominant art form of the 20th century is gone forever, never to be seen again. If we let something similar happen to classic video games, I truly believe it will be a blow the medium will never fully recover from. We're only just now seeing game design come into its own as a college and/or trade-level educational path, and while instructors and professors will no doubt find the resources to expose young minds to the full history of the medium, there's only so much one can do in a classroom. Those with the most interest in gaming history will no doubt want to seek out more games from earlier times, and unfortunately what they can find is going to be substantially limited and fairly expensive. You know, I don't know about you, but I don't like the idea of this medium's future being in the hands of folks whose knowledge of gaming history doesn't go back any farther than the PlayStation 2, and may not have even experienced the foundational titles from which this industry is built. Just like I wouldn't put much stock in a writer who'd never heard of Shakespeare, or a filmmaker who didn't know his Eisenstein, or an animator who hadn't studied Fleischer, or a rock guitarist who didn't know from Jimmy Page, I'm not inclined to be keen on, say, an RPG developer who hadn't studied Ultima or Dragon Quest, or someone designing a shooter who'd never taken a turn through Metal Slug or Akari Warriors. The fact that you can't access and play classic games with the same ease and comfort as classic books, movies, or artwork is a huge problem and is doing a disservice to both the past and future of this industry, and it's a problem that exists wholly on the corporate and publishing side. So, even though I know how unlikely it is that any of them are listening to me, I'm going to say it anyway. Game companies, you need to start opening up your back catalog for the good of yourselves, for the good of your fans, and for the good of this medium. How you choose to do this is up to you. Ultimately, an almost perfect solution would be a vastly more expanded version of the Steam model, aimed at classic games and set up to work not only on PCs but on mobile devices and the inevitably web-friendly next generation of consoles. But that solution is years of technological and legal wrangling away. Until then, it's imperative that more and more companies get with the program in the form of value-priced compilations for PCs and consoles. Titles like the Data East Collection, Tato Legends, the Activision Anthology, and Midway Arcade Treasures have been a huge blessing for the medium, and we need more of them. We'd probably see even more stuff like it if certain console license holders weren't sticks in the mud about holding on to old product rights. Looking at you on that one, Nintendo, it's time to take the reins off both your first-party Golden Age titles and the titles of your one-time licensees and allow them all to be widely available. Yes, the Virtual Console was the right idea, but it's not good enough. Needs more selection, lower prices, you'll make it up in volume, trust me. Now, I know a lot of people will say that this is once again a case of too much stock getting placed in older games of dubious merit through the fog of nostalgia, but the thing is, the flaws of Golden Age gaming can teach us just as much as the good stuff. The early arcade and pre-PlayStation console age was the Wild West, when gaming was still figuring out what it wanted to be. Experimentation was everywhere, and seeing the medium in this unpolished format could give a sharp-eyed would-be designer the best rundown of do's and don'ts they could ask for. You know, gamers have done a lot to maintain the history of this medium. We've bought old games, we've collected old games, we've refurbished old consoles, we've traded, collected, and maintained the classics. Now it's time for the industry to do its part. It's time to open the warehouses, open the back catalogs, reissue the files, get that material out there, put it on Steam, App Store, freeware, however you want to do it. This is our history we're talking about, and if we don't get preservation going now while there's still time, there's no telling what we could lose.
RetroThinker.
Who are you?
My name is of no consequence. I am a friend.
What kind of friend?
The kind that remembers the old ways.
I've got one of those.
The kind that can offer you more than the Overthinker's empty condolences. The kind that can offer you power.
What kind of power?
The power you most desire. Behold.
Hubert?
Yes. I have the power to raise the forgotten from the dead. And so can you, RetroThinker.
I could have them all back.
Surrender your allegiance to me, and I shall give you the power to draw all your dearest friends back to life from the darkest depths of digital memory. Do you accept my offer?
Yes.
Within this gem is the power to call the video dead up from the very bowels of the earth. Take its power, RetroThinker. Become my champion. Now, RetroThinker, the words are already within you. Speak them.
I have the power!
RetroThinker, rise.
The RetroThinker is no more. I am the NecroThinker.
Now, my dear departed friends, my icons of legend, my heroes lost to the ages, I, NecroThinker, command you to rise! Rise! Rise!